Good evening, everyone. Today we are here to discuss an important topic, post-pandemic economic recovery of India, which comes under SDG 8, Decent Work and Economic Growth. I'm Shashank Gupta, a first-year student at BITS Goa, and my co-speaker, Aditya Bhatt, who is the Secretary General of BITS Man Goa, would be reflecting as to how the country India has managed or is managing to recover its economy post the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic has ravaged the Indian economy inside out. The country recorded a 24% contraction of the GDP in the second quarter of 2020, the biggest drop among all major G20 countries. However, in the next quarter, the economy rampaged up quickly as lockdown restrictions eased nationwide. So, Aditya, what do you feel? Has the country been able to make any progress during these trying times? Does the census speak for itself?
Thank you for that intro, Shashank. So, firstly, I feel the pandemic is it's a topic that's still evolving as we speak. So, I think judging on everything that has happened, I mean, I remember reading headlines that were as grim as, I mean, having unemployment rates as high as 25%, right? Having a very abysmal drop in industrial production, just looking at small businesses and even larger corporate companies looking at constraints in cash flow. I think the situation was quite a bit tighter previously. Looking at lakhs and lakhs of people who are getting either laid off or furloughed or getting even pay cuts. It was quite difficult, but I think slowly and steadily things are recovering. Right. So this is obviously an effect of these of the lockdown and how different initiatives have been taken both by the government and the people side of things as well as the business side of things. But I think slowly and gradually we can definitely get there. I mean, the vaccines offer a sort of hope, if I might call it that. And I think we are probably on a good path for a recovery. But I think for the recovery, one important theory that is brought up now is, you look at businesses, you look at large companies, these people are recovering very well. They are having what's their so-called V-shaped recovery, where there's a quick drop followed by a quick rise. But what's also a point of concern is that the recovery could be something which is X shaped. Now, X in the as a graph curve is a little difficult to imagine. But think of how these businesses just kept take rose up right after their fall. What people think that this might actually lead to people who are working, suppose in the informal sector or micro and small enterprises, they'll just keep falling gradually because the thing is they haven't been able to recover fully. So I think a lot of it comes down to how different policies are into place and how different schemes are obviously into place. All of that coupled with how this situation is improving. So Shashank, tell me, what do you think about the different policies and the different initiatives that have been taken by the government?
On the 15th of May, like that was last year, 2020, the Prime Minister of India had already declared a COVID relief package of $260 billion. Other than that, on the 14th of November, the Finance Minister of India had released a comprehensive stimulus package of approximately 2.65 lakh crores. So the government is like coming up with initiatives. It is providing funds to the particular sections of the society who are actually suffering through this particular COVID-19 pandemic. Like, other than that, we can also talk about micro, small, and medium enterprises, especially where the Ministry of Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprises, I'll call it MSME. So, like, MSMEs are basically like very small enterprises which are right now growing. Like, these are basic low points in the industry which require boosts, which require funds from the government. So the government is providing funds out there, like rupees 3 lakh crore was provided with as loans with 100% credit guarantee to certain people. Other than that, rupees 20,000 crores is also provided for stressed MSMEs which are suffering right now. Other than that, the government is also trying to promote e-market right now, because like people can't physically attend exhibitions and certain trade fairs where like actual representation of your particular product is done. So the government feels as there is a multifold increase in the e-commerce sector in the country, a significant volume of products is imported into and exported out of the country through the particular platform itself. And to find a balance and control, we need to do something, and the government is doing something. So yeah, other than that, what else, Aditya?
I think initiatives are a good side, especially when it comes to small businesses. But I think the focus should not be taken off of, I mean, the whole people side of thing, because at the end of the day, it's these individual people who sort of run all of these businesses. And I think in this side as well, a few decent initiatives have come up. For example, I'm not sure if you've heard about the National Skill Development Corporation, which is the NSTC for short. So they had this as a long-term program, but I think they're trying to get it back on track and scale it up after COVID. It's called the PMKVY, the Prime Minister Kaushal Vikas Yojana, which is, I think, getting basically the intent here is to get unskilled workers into low-skilled jobs. So suppose if there is a daily wagerer or a laborer, right, probably training that person to get a decent job as probably an electrician, a carpenter, right, getting that person basic vocational skill training.
So
So
like
things
you're
like
basically
that.
connecting to Atmanirbhar Bharat right now.
Correct,
Like
correct. So I think, I mean, at the end of the day, having an unskilled workforce is probably not going to be as good at getting an output. You know, an output in any form of, be it industrial output or just, I mean, like the individual's efforts. Because the thing is, unskilled labor is not very efficient at generating the person income, and it's not very efficient at generating the nation income. So I think one of the core, I mean, getting, you know, if you look at scaling up the population, universities probably get mid-skilled people into high-skilled jobs, right? Higher education focuses on that, but that is only, you know, making that small 1% or 2% group who are able to afford going to universities, getting them more skilled. So I think it's a very good initiative that's being taken at especially the unskilled sector. You know, so people like your, even something like your couriers people or delivery people, right? So even getting them basic training to get them to have better jobs. I think that is a very good initiative, and it can also help support people who work in the informal sector. Because I think if you look at it from a larger point of view, the informal sector was hit quite a lot worse than the formal sector, right? For example, in the informal sector of jobs, right, people who don't have an official contract, there is no notice period to get them laid off, right? If suppose today a lockdown is announced and I am an informal, I'm a worker in the informal sector, I wouldn't get a notice period that I'm going to be laid off in 30 days or 60 days or 90 days. I'll just be out.
but these
And I
people will
think
be
that is
out
a
like
very big, correct,
Mhm.
correct. And that's a very big problem for people that there's no job security for them. So I think getting people skilled, empowering them to get better jobs is a very good initiative. And that's probably a step in the good direction. Right. And I think this isn't just a thing that's limited to people. A lot of policy initiatives have been focusing on creating jobs. Right. Now, a common problem that a lot of people raise up is that jobs are lost, correct? I think even you would have probably seen it a lot in the news that how do we get those jobs back? And I think a good way to get those jobs back or creating new jobs in the first place is probably investing into sustainable projects for a more sustainable future. All right. So, for example, I think I recently read that Gujarat is going to be home to the world's largest solar park, and that's the world's largest, not the state's largest or the country's largest. All right. The world's largest solar park is going to be set up in Gujarat, and I think that is a good example of having investments done in the right place. Right. So when you invest in something like green clean tech, when you invest in some green energy project like solar energy, be it a wind farm or anything, that's not just creating jobs in the that's not just creating jobs for people, it's also creating jobs in the green sector, which is actually a skill that'll be relevant 10, 20, 30 years from now. That is actually having indirect benefits in the form of reduced emissions for reduced reliance on fossil fuel based power. So I think that's a good initiative. What do you think about this?
Other than that, I feel that yes, the government is taking initiative out here, like in fact introduction of like privatization of the industry. Like let's take that as a suitable example. Like there are people who keep on crying out that like the government is like privatizing everything which is actually present. But if we look at it in one way, it can surely help boost the economy as well. So let's take a basic example of Mr. X, like not naming anyone. He's a private player, all right. So like he backs the contract from the government, and he actually is managing multiple airports in the country. So now there is another player who is managing the other five air, like say that there are X number of airports and Y number of airports, and like now when there is competition in the industry, we realize that competition is always healthy in this particular case. So like whenever there's competition, like they will try to evolve, they'll try to be a bit more efficient, they'll try to like help boost that particular area itself, and to do that they require all sorts of forces, right? They require man force, they require adequate labor to actually build stuff and everything. So for that, I feel that whatever the government is doing right now is sufficient enough, but it should be continued a bit more. Like the effort should be prolonged. It should not stop in the middle. Like there should be no impulsive stoppage in the between. Other than that, we can say that, the government is doing a bit too much about this as well. Like especially like when we are following SDG 8 out here. So like we can see it in the news as well that exports are increasing exponentially. Like it came in the news as well
Correct, correct.
that were you saying something, Aditya?
No, no, go on, please.
So it came in the news as well that India's exports to China, like which is a major trade player out here, have rose significantly since like up till now. It was around 10 or $15 billion, but right now it is crossing the $20 billion mark and has crossed around 16% more than last year. Along with that, there is trade deficit, which has dropped down by approximately $48 billion, which is also something quite huge for the country. It's like a benchmark which we have crossed, and like if we put substantial efforts out here, like Atmanirbhar Bharat, which is a clear example, which was released during COVID-19 itself. Like the Prime Minister of India supported Atmanirbhar Bharat so much, and this is the reason why we have so many private players who are actually introducing factories, and industries are actually coming to India and building factories so that the production cost is also decreasing. More people are getting employment out here, and some people say that whenever people start losing jobs, let's take an example of introduction of machines. Like initially there was too much manual labor in a textile factory, all right, but now if you see that machines do everything, so people will complain that people are losing jobs out here. However, we can say that those particular machines in the factories in which they were made, they require maintenance, so the workers, they'll get a new job out there as well, right? So there is always a opening of a new field whenever there is shutting down of an old one. What do you think, Aditya?
I think that's definitely correct. I mean, in the short term, it will lead to a few job losses, but then again, these people can be reskilled, retrained to get possibly even both better paying jobs and better fulfilling jobs. I mean, manual labor is quite intensive, both it takes a physical strain on the person. So having something that's a bit more fulfilling, both in terms of the pay and just how the job is in general, it can definitely be a good step. And I mean, since you have brought up SDG 8, so I think one of the targets for the Sustainable Development Goal 8, which is decent work in the economic rail, is how growth for, I mean, countries which aren't that developed should be around about 7%. And I think, judging by the current trends, obviously last year was a contraction in the economy,
Okay.
but I think this year we can definitely reach the 7% trend, the 7% growth point. So I think that's a good point. That's a step in the good direction. And even if we look at other targets for sustainable development goal, so I think one of the targets is of goal 8 is sustainable development goal 8 target 7, which is about ending child labor and ending forced labor. I think the deadline for that is 2025. Uh, what do you think? Do you think the whole lockdown situation had an impact on child labor and forced labor?
Yes, I feel that the lockdown had a major impact on child labor and forced labor. The main reason for this was that during lockdown, people lost jobs. As I rightfully said, people lost jobs earlier. And now, when you don't have a job, you don't have a source of income, you require money. All right. And where will you get that money from? So, like, therefore, families were forced to actually send their children to mines for mining purposes, construction purposes, everything. Like they act like slavery and child labor was something which was quite common at that particular period of time when there were no jobs at all. However, I feel that, and I feel that everyone must have this main opinion that like instead of like the government can take an initiative at this particular sector as well, where proper education to be provided, making sure that these particular mines or land mining and etc, like these do not actually employ these children like to actually mine out there, because it gets pretty dangerous for everyone out there as well. What do you feel, Aditya?
I think so. Mining is, I think, a very it's a sector which can be improved a lot. I mean, I just remember coming across this report on how the fashion industry is booming. It's especially cosmetics in particular, not fashion. That's quite a bit of generalization. So I'm not sure if you know, but cosmetics they use this substance called mica. It's a mineral actually, which is supposed to be shiny and glossy. It's mined in the central and the central eastern states of India. So take Jharkhand and Orissa, for example. So I think mining of mica is done in mines which have shafts which are so thin that only children can fit in them. And that was a major place where a lot of children used to go for employment. So sometimes sent by their parents, sometimes going out their own free will to just to earn some money. And that I think sort of went unchecked in the whole lockdown, because the thing is there was no enforcement of the law on ground, right? And I mean, I don't know, I probably don't have a position to say if it really affected the revenues of major established cosmetic players. But I think definitely there could have been an increase in child labor, at least in these mines, because when there is no law enforcement at the grassroots level, obviously a lot of activities would go unchecked. I think this is an important place where some sort of systemic change needs to come, especially in the enforcement part. And I mean, other than the skill as well, the mindset of the people would also have to change, because I mean, a lot of people are in that financial situation where they feel that it's pointless, some sort of investing in an education and things like that. But then again, it's not. Sometimes it's not a choice, all right? We are sort of privileged to have that choice. A lot of people don't have that choice whether to go for an education. So I think a lot of systemic things that need change sort of all coalesce together, which is leading to a lot of these situations. How about some other goals or targets of the Sustainable Development Goal 8? So I think one of the factors that the UNDP has suggested is promoting sustainable tourism. Do you think that could be a viable opportunity, both to generate jobs, to sort of diversify the local economy for a lot of states?
So basically, tourism doesn't require equipments. It doesn't require basic formalities which are actually required to establish your industry. So tourism can surely help in boosting the economy of any particular place. Let's take any particular country for example. Like they do not have any scenic beauties. However, they try to portray it such that the economy of that particular place increases exponentially. Like look at the mountains at this particular place. This landscape looks amazing. Like you should come out. So instead of actually diminishing any particular area, we should actually focus a bit more on tourism, like educating the particular locals out there, like so that they come up to date with the particular information and they can actually help in expressing out the particular history of the entire place. Because when a particular so other than that, we can also talk about goal target 8.6, which is promoting youth employment, education, and training, which also comes under SDG 8, like how MSMEs are taken into consideration and how everything is coming into the picture together. What is your opinion, Aditya?
Definitely. I think even adding on to the point of sustainable tourism, I think that single word, that addition of that one word makes all the difference in the world. Because I mean, you look at tourism, a lot of places get exploited for their probably their views, their resources, anything. I mean, tourists come, commercial tourists come, who are mainly, they don't care about what happens to the place. A lot of them pollute a lot. The place takes a hit from an environmental point of view. So I think promoting tourism sustainably to both preserve the culture of the place, to preserve the environment of the location, I think that's a good option. And even about the empowering the youth, carrying them more skill to take on jobs, I think that is also definitely a good direction to go on. I think most of these targets of sustainable development goals, I mean the all of their targets, most of them are being covered. What do you think? Is there a target that you feel is being left out that you think should be covered?
So, so developing a youth employment strategy, like that's a particular target 8 point B out here, like developing a global youth employment strategy. Like many times, just as you said, the government is actually targeting to convert no skill to low skill labors. However, we fail to realize that if you are converting someone to a particular level, like which is not that high, like they cannot actually live in a particular environment, like India, like there is competition everywhere, right? We need to make sure that certain universities, certain institutions should actually take up the responsibility of actually guiding these people from low skill to actually high skill laborers or high skilled work professionals, like converting them to professionals so as to make sure that they actually survive in this environment itself, right? Through proper strategies, making sure that not everyone is being trained for one particular job itself. Like there are multiple people who are being trained for many jobs. Like there should be a diversity in jobs as well. Like if we are only training people for coding, computer coding, artificial intelligence, that's one thing. However, we are not targeting the other sectors of the economy as well, which are actually helping us boost the economy. So what do you feel, Alta?
Correct. I think a lot of these, I think most of what all initiatives and both taken by the government, taken by people, taken by civil societies are very good in the good in a good direction. A few targets that I think we can work better upon is obviously upskilling people a little better, especially having action at the grassroots level. Because as we discussed, a lot of people don't have the choice whether they want their children to work or not. It's more of matter of survival. So I think this is where we as individuals should step up and take action. I think especially in the lockdown, I've observed it myself that civil society, social organizations, and NGOs, all of these can sort of make a very big impact if they have the right amount of volunteers helping for them, helping them. Even if it's just something as scaling up their business, even if it's not something that's an on-ground action. I mean, I personally know people who are working in the social sector, and a big misconception is that people there lack funds, and they, I mean, if you look at large philanthropists, I find the whole concept of CSR a little bit flawed, because people think that throwing cash at, I mean, NGOs will sort of make the whole situation better. I mean,
A
these
direction
people
should be
don't
given to
need
the
cash. Correct, they need people to work with them, they need people to support them, they need people to understand what they're doing in the first place. So I think a large shift towards how all these social organizations work, promoting people in volunteering, promoting people I mean, just to sort of do something that's good for society is going to be a good direction, both for improving the current situation. I mean, the whole pandemic situation that we're in, people losing their jobs and everything, whether it is someone volunteering to improve that situation, or whether it is to make society more resilient as a whole, whether it is to make society more empathetic towards each other as a whole, understanding people's problems. This is where I think individuals can probably step up, probably volunteers, even just understand what other people are going through, what other people are doing to sort of make things better for other people. That is how I think things can be worked out. What do you think?
Yeah, I feel that if we have a union out here, if we have unity is strength at the end. Like if we are if like as you rightfully said, CSR seems to be a fraud itself, because like if the company doesn't know, like certain companies, they just employ random institutions to just do the goodwill for some random reasons altogether, which they don't even know will actually help some particular uh, sector altogether or not. So like by making sure that we actually give direction to these type of resources which we are getting, we can surely see a sustainable development in the society as well. So
True, true. And I think it's good that we are identifying flaws both within our own selves, within our own circles, and even institutions at large. Because I think identifying these flaws would lead us to making better, more resilient organizations, institutions, and frameworks for a better tomorrow. That is, I
okay.
think, how I feel is a better part to recovery, not just looking at economic recovery, but recovery as a whole for society.
So we strongly feel that the recovery, like India's economy, will surely recover if we actually follow the particular steps which have already been taken, and actually like it keeps on going forward as well. Like it doesn't stop in the middle. There's no impulsive stop in the middle, and if the country progresses, we shall surely meet the required GDP rate, and unemployment will surely decrease as well, and India's economy will recover. Thank you.